Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Just Guitars Live. My name is Rodney Wittenberg, and my co-host here.
My name is Tim Hankey.
And we are so happy to have all of you here tonight as we get ready to go on the, as I say, the geekiest of geeky journeys into one of the most amazing guitars on the planet. And I do believe it is kind of the first solid body electric guitar. That is the Fender Telecaster. Can we get a big round of applause for the Fender Telecaster? What we're going to do first is we're going to do a deep dive into the history of the Telecaster and a little bit about Fender. And then we're going to talk a little bit about some of the people who play the Telecaster. And then we're going to bring up our wonderful guest, Tommy Conwell, who is going to show off what
He's going to get up here and rip, okay?
He's going to show off what this instrument can do. And so sit back, relax. Then we're going to open it up to some questions a little bit later so that you guys can all ask us some questions if we know the answer. If not, maybe we'll make it up. If not, we'll look it up. We got our computers up here. But we're going to get started right away with my good friend to my left here, Mr. Tim Hankey, who is an amazing guitar luthier. Yeah. So, Tim, tell me, how did the Fender Telecaster get started?
Okay, so it's a big topic, and by the way, we wouldn't be, if we did make something up, we wouldn't be the first people to make something up about
the Telecaster. Yeah.
The Fender Telecaster obviously was built by, the Fender Electric Instrument Company, which was started by Leo Fender officially in 1946 is when he started the company. Anyway, Leo Fender was born in 1909. He showed an affinity for electronics and tinkering at an early age. When he was 13 years old, he worked in his uncle's automotive electronics shop. He actually trained as an accountant and worked as an accountant and lost his job as an accountant in the Great Depression. And he just kind of went back to his hobby and turned it into his business. In 1938, he started a radio an electronics repair shop, and then in it was called Fender Radio Service, and in 1943, K&F Music partnered with Doc Kaufman. He was a former engineer from Rickenbacker, and Kaufman and Fender, K&F Music, they got together and they decided that they were going to make lap steels and amplifiers. Now, Rickenbacker was making the first amplified electric guitars in the 1930s, but they were lap steels. And Doc Kaufman worked for Rickenbacker, and then he went and he partnered with Leo Fender. So he was already bringing some of that, electric guitar knowledge to Leo Fender. Leo Fender redid the pickup he got a patent on the pickup design for the lap steel guitar, and that was their product from 1944 through 1946. They were making lap steels and amplifiers. In 1946, Doc Kaufman, he pulled out of the company, and Leo decided that he was going to go it alone, and he started Fender Electric Instruments. And 1948, Fender renamed it Fender Electric Instruments. It was called Fender Manufacturing prior to that. I'm sorry. And then Leo joined up with a guy named Don Randall. And Don Randall was a marketing genius, and he was the marketing behind Fender. Now, mind you, all this occurred in the background prior to anything like an electric guitar actually being, that wasn't even on his radar yet. But Don Randall, he had the radio and television equipment company, and they were the exclusive distributors of Fender products.
It's interesting that so many people who went into like furniture or electronics ended up also getting involved in music. There's a rich history of people who sold furniture, who started record labels. And it's a strange thing, but it's kind of like if you think
didn't know
about it.
that.
Yeah, it's kind
I
of
had no
like
idea.
if you think about it, it's the software for the hardware because they were selling record players,
Right.
so they.
Right.
It keeps-
Okay. Yeah. Exactly. You have to put the record player in
So
something.
they
Yeah.
figure, hey, if I can start a record company, I'll record the records in the back, and then I'll sell them myself. And that's how, so when you dig deep into like some of the early blues and country and folk artists, they would record in the back of a store, and that store would sell their record up front along with the turntable to be able to play it. But it's just interesting how there's this connection that's happening in the 30s, 40s. 20s, 30s, and 40s, where people who get into electronics also find a connection to music. But
Anyway, so this guy Don Randall, he joined up, and right around 1948, another guy came into the picture, and his name was George Fullerton. And Leo Fender and George Fullerton became really good lifelong friends and business partners. In fact, the G&L Guitar Company, which was the final company that Leo Fender ran, was George and Leo. So, and that was that. Well, unfortunately, they just closed their doors this month, finally. But that was Leo's company until he died in 1991. That's Don Randall on the left, and in the background there, you see a gentleman playing a Strat, and that is in fact George. That is in fact George Fullerton. So. There's George and Leo, and like I said, the young man there in the previous slide. Well, they're all two old men there now, and yeah, they were lifelong friends and collaborators, and it really was the partnership between George Fullerton and Leo Fender that really is what made Fender tick. A guy by the name of Paul Bigsby, who was a motorcycle mechanic. And he was also a tinkerer. He happened to also be a luthier. Paul Bigsby raced motorcycles, and so incidentally did a guy by the name of Merrill Travis. And Merrill Travis was a big Western swing music star, and he hung out with Paul Bigsby at the racetrack, and they got to talking, and they also knew this other guy who also lived in the same locale area in that same area of California. It was a guy by name, you might have heard of him, Les Paul. And Les Paul had built this thing called the log, which really was a 4x4 block of what was a 4x4. It was a deck post that he had stuck a guitar neck on. He sawed his guitar in half and glued the sides onto the thing, and put a pickup and a bridge on it and called it a guitar. And it was called the log, and it really was the first solid body guitar. But Les Paul was more of a proof of concept kind of guy. He really wasn't, hey, can you give me a finished product that somebody would want to play kind of guy. So Merrill Travis said to Paul Bigsby in one of their conversations, he's like, hey, could you make a guitar that's a solid body guitar that somebody would like, that I could get up on stage and play and look like I'm playing a guitar instead of like nobody's going to play a block of wood. Can you do something? And he did. And he made this guitar that you see Merrill holding, and it's also the guitar that was in the previous slide. And you'll notice something about this guitar. Now, this was hand built by Paul Bigsby in his home workshop. And it's a solid plank of wood. It's about 1.5 inches to 1.75 inches thick. It's made out of maple. You'll notice that it has a single pickup in the bridge position, and it has a headstock where all of the tuners are on one side. This guitar bears zero resemblance to a Fender Telecaster. None. There are no similarities whatsoever. This guitar was in existence in 1946. Now remember, I had mentioned earlier that Leo Fender had just started his company in 1946. So here this is 1946, 47, and Paul Bigsby is building these guitars. Now, these were incredibly expensive, hand-built guitars. Merrill Travis was a big star. He could afford to pay Paul Bigsby somebody to handcraft him a guitar out of. You can see it there. It's like a figured, slightly bird's-eyed maple. It's a really beautiful piece of maple wood. It was a classy-looking instrument that someone could get on stage and play, and it cost a lot of money. It wasn't something that the average guitar player would go out and buy, and it certainly wasn't something that was ever going to be mass-produced. Paul Bigsby, I believe, built exactly 6 total guitars in his lifetime. He was a motorcycle mechanic. He also designed the Bigsby tremolo. That was another thing that he built. But again, that was,
Here's a little bit of
it looks
Merle
like
Travis playing here.
Some people say a man is made out of mud, but a poor man's made out of muscle and blood. Muscle and blood, skin and bones, they got a mind that's weak and a back that's strong. He loads 16 tons, and what do you get? You get another day older and deeper in debt. St. Peter, don't you call me, 'cause I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store.
Now that does sound a little bit like a tally, but not quite.
So now we're in the mid-40s, and now we got to jump back to the 19th century, because we're going to be talking about where Leo Fender got some of his ideas from, and things were copied, but, things are copied. People take other people's ideas and they build on them. That is the headstock off of an early 1830s. So that's an early 19th century Fender Stouffer style Martin headstock, and you can see that all the tuners are in a straight line on the headstock. They're not. They're all different length shafts because the tuners are on the left-hand side, the tuner buttons. But you can see that the E string runs all the way. The high E string.
That's really curious because I don't think we see a lot of acoustic guitars with that kind of headstock.
That was designed by a guy named his last name was Stouffer, and he was in Germany, and he believed that was a better way to do it for tuning stability because all the strings will be pulled in a straight line.
Mm.
Beautifully ornate stuff. That all of that engraving is hand cut on that back plate of that. And each of those little holes that you see in the 6 straight lines, they're actually lubrication holes, which incidentally Clouson tuners used well into the 20th century. Those little holes in the back of the Clousons are for injecting lubricant into the tuner. And that is actually that is an 1830s Martin that I had actually restored decades ago. It's actually in Martin's museum collection now, but they were trying to date it. It might be the oldest one in their collection because it was one. They came to the conclusion because of the unusual label inside. Thank God my cat didn't eat it when I was restoring it. And anyway, came close. It was touch and go there for a minute. It was actually one of the dozen or so Martins that Christian Frederick Martin built in Germany before he traveled to New York, so that he would have something to be able to put together and sell right away when he got off the boat. And that guitar ended up in my shop by happenstance at one point, and it was literally just a box of sticks held together with rubber bands, so it was quite a bit of work to make it work. You can see that the 6-in-line tuners was nothing new. And that is a Rickenbacker Bakelite guitar. And the Bakelite guitar had something really interesting that Paul Bigsby's guitar did not have. The Rickenbacker Bakelite guitar had a bolt-on neck. And remember Doc Kaufman, who was an engineer that worked for Rickenbacker, well, he worked with Leo Fender for a little bit, and they built lap steel guitars. So Leo Fender was already familiar with the idea of a bolt-on neck. So we have Paul Bigsby's guitar that Leo Fender was acquainted with. There is, in fact, a story that Merle Travis told in later years where he had said that Leo Fender borrowed the guitar off of him for a week in the late 1940s and then gave it back to him. So Leo Fender was that guitar was in Leo Fender's hand prior to them building the very first prototype of the Fender Broadcaster, which is I think what they were going to call it. This is their very first prototype. It's in Fender's museum, and it is made out of, the body is pine wood. It has a single pickup in the bridge, just like the Rickenbacker Bakelite, just like the Merrill Travis Bigsby guitar. And it, interestingly enough, it has 3 on a side tuners, not the 6-in-line tuners. And the 6-in-line tuners came on the second prototype that they had built. Now, not to be undone, since that is the property of Fender Musical Instruments and they owned it today, of course the custom shop had to reissue an anniversary editions where you could buy a copy of the original prototype for, however many gajillion dollars they're selling it for. But it is just a pine wood plank guitar. So that was 1949 that the very first prototype of the solid body guitar was built. And then come 1950, they wanted to put it into production, and that was when it was named the Fender Esquire. Now, again, it kept the single pickup. It was Don Randall who came up with the name Esquire. It was also Don Randall who came up with the name Broadcaster, and it was Don Randall who came up with the name Stratocaster, and it was Don Randall who came up with the name Telecaster. So Don Randall's very important to the Fender company.
Talk about why there was a need for this solid body electric guitar.
Why did we need an electric guitar? Because we need to be loud, dude. Come on. Why else?
But there were amplified guitars prior to this.
There were amplified guitars. Well, I mean, for the very same reason that Les Paul took his hollow-bodied Epiphone and took the neck out and shoved the body through a bandsaw, cut it in half, stuck a plank of wood in the middle, and then glued the 2 sides on it so it would sort of kind of look like a guitar. Because when you played an amplified guitar that was hollow, that was essentially an acoustic guitar with a pickup in it, the notes, the music, the sound would come out of the speaker, and then it would hit the top of the guitar, which was a resonator, because the whole point of an acoustic guitar with a soundboard on it is the soundboard, it works like the speaker cone. It amplifies the sound acoustically, but it does amplify the sound. Well, the sound come out of the speakers, hits the top of the guitar, and then the top of the guitar vibrates even more. And then that gets picked up by the pickup, and it goes back through the speaker, and it comes out of the speaker and hits the top of the guitar again, and the top of the guitar vibrates more, and it keeps going, and then all of a sudden your guitar's just going and squealing out of control, and you don't know what to do about it, and then you got to go and turn the volume down, and now you can't be loud. So that was the point of a solid body guitar.
So we get no squealy feedback.
You get no squealing feedback
or
from a
fuzz
solid body guitar.
Yeah.
So that's what they did. So now we're up to the Esquire. The Esquire was a single pickup guitar, and they did something very interesting with the wiring. And there is a picture of a very, very young and handsome-looking Mr. B.B. King, who we all know for playing the Gibson ES style guitar. But there he is, holding a Fender Esquire. You can see it's got the 2 controls, and it has a 3-way switch, which pretty much looks identical, more or less, to what's on the stage. Because it had no neck pickup, when you put it all the way back in lead position, it was the bridge pickup with no tone control, just a volume control. When you put it in the middle, you got your tone control, and then when you put it all the way up to the neck position, there was no neck pickup. It engaged a pretty high value capacitor, and it gave what Fender called the deep rhythm tone. So that's how they got 3 sounds out of a single pickup guitar. And there's another example of an Esquire. You can see it has no neck pickup. And that is what the bridge looked like. And this speaks to Leo Fender's sense of aesthetic. It's incredibly simple. The bridge is nothing more than a stamped piece of steel. The plate is just a stamped piece of steel. It's stamped in a die, and it's got 3 holes drilled in it so that you can adjust the pickup up and down. And you can see that the bridge saddles are nothing more than they're just brass rod. That's it. They're just cut brass rod, and they've got some thread tapped in it for the intonation screw to move the saddle back and forth, and then there's the 2 screws on the side that adjust the string height up and down. And literally, aside from the, having a stamping die to make the, to stamp the steel plate, every other component from that bridge, you could get the materials at your local hardware store. There was nothing exotic about anything that Fender made. And that is what made the Fender guitar so accessible to so many musicians, because Leo Fender wanted to design and build something that was, was a working musician's guitar that just about anyone could afford, and it was going to be built like a tank, he said, and would be, a workhorse, and could sell it to the masses. Well, as it turns out, in the early Fender literature, they wanted such an accessible guitar that one of the main selling features of the neck was the player could change it himself within 10 minutes, eliminating the need for repairs and refrets. So they were never designed to be refretted.
How much was the first Telecaster?
The Esquire sold for $139.
So it's a very, very affordable, relatively affordable guitar for the time.
In 1950, that was a bit more money than it is now, but still, it was only $139. It was within the reach of most ordinary people. They could also buy a nice little amp to go with it, and I do have one.
Can we have a big round of applause for Gary? Gary is our producer of our show, who really doesn't get on camera that much. One of the things that you told me was really interesting was how Leo thought about the pickups and what he was trying to do with his winding.
One of the interesting things about all Fender guitars is they all have a very distinct sound. A Telecaster sounds exactly like a Telecaster, and a Stratocaster sounds like a Stratocaster. They have very distinctive tones, and Leo was always good at that. I mean, even after he started his other companies, a Music Man bass, boy, does that ever sound like a Music Man. I mean, he just had a knack for designing things that had a very distinctive tonality. He wasn't able to play a note. He never played a musical instrument, a guitar in his life, but he deliberately designed and wound his pickups to emphasize the treble frequency and the bass frequencies, and he really wasn't a fan of mid-range frequencies. In fact, he called them fluff. So he actually designed a pickup with a very scooped mid-range, which is why you get such clear, sparkly tones out of a Fender Telecaster, because that was a very deliberate design technique.
And my aha moment was I wondered, as we looked at some of the guitar players who play the Tele, why there are no jazz players who play a Telecaster. And it because the guitar doesn't have that range. It cuts out the middle, that sort of warm, mid-rangey tone that every jazz player has. What we should bring up our guest, and we should talk about and explore the sound. So could you all please give a big round of applause for Tommy Conwell, who's going to come up here and show off what this amazing guitar can do. So Tommy, a question I love to ask people when I get to interview them, and my first question for you is, so how did music come into your life, and then how did you find the guitar, or did the guitar find you?
We had a piano, and I just always played everything, every instrument, whatever I could get, harmonica, piano, whatever there was.
And what age were you doing this?
Probably 9th grade, I learned the blues scale.
Mm-hmm.
There was a guy, Buzz Barkley from Baru Review.
Yeah.
You ever heard of him?
Uh-huh.
Well, his real name is Bruce Larkin, and he
Yeah.
went to my church. You know, he went to St. Matthias in Ballackinwood. And one time when I was in ninth grade at Ballackinwood Junior High, he came and played piano, and he went diggity 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 down. And I could just hear it. I went home and did it, and like then I started playing all that boogie woogie stuff. You know what I mean? A bunch of like 12-bar. You know. But anyway, yeah, I just played, and I started playing. My cousin gave me. I started on ukulele, actually. My grandmom had a ukulele back before they were cool, and I can't believe ukuleles got big. Is that the weirdest thing ever? But I had a ukulele before they were cool, and that's how I started. And all those chords on the uke work on the guitar too. So anyway, yeah. And I just
And before that, were you drawn? I guess your parents played because you had all these instruments.
Nah. I played harmonic. I played the instruments you could buy for like under $20. You know what I mean? And a recorder or a harmonica, or you know, just toys.
Was it because you were listening? Was there?
Well, I had older
Listen to the radio?
brothers.
Oh, okay.
And my brother brought home records. You know, David Bowie, Jethro Tull. Yes was my favorite when I was in 8th grade.
Yeah.
First concert, 1976, JFK Stadium.
Wow.
But anyway, yeah, Steve Howe, you know. But anyway, yeah.
So I always say for myself, I remember hearing "Oh Darlin'" on the radio, and that sound of the guitar doing the jink was what made I wanted to learn to do that.
Yeah.
What was it for you? What got you to the
Probably,
guitar?
I don't know, Steve Howe, I guess, you know, or really lead guitar. Like, I always liked the lead guys, you know, like my first guitar teacher asked me, who you want to play like? I said, Frank Zappa. And he said, all right, listen to this. This is Pat Martino. Listen to this. And that blew my mind. And I like George Benson, too, like when he was doing like all that Breezin' album and all that great guitar playing. So I like jazz.
Cool. And then what brought you to the guitar? You said you had Steve Howe, and then what brought you to the telly?
I don't know. Oh, the telly? Yeah. Oh, the telly. Danny Gatton.
Yeah.
So I saw. I had I played most of the time back when we were making records and stuff. I had a Guild X500, a fat guitar, jazz guitar. Because like I said, I was a jazz fan, and But anyway, and then I saw Danny Gatton at the Chestnut Cabaret, and he was amazing.
Yeah.
And so the next day there was the guitar show was in town, and we were planning on going. So I took my Firebird. I had a Firebird that was a badass guitar, actually. You know what screwed that Firebird up? I put new tuners on it, and it was never the same. It was a great guitar, a change of tuners, and I'm sure you could fix that, but for me, it was just never the same. But anyway, I traded a Firebird and an Ovation 12-string for this.
Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, and I've been playing it ever since.
So
It's the only telly I've ever had.
Wow.
By the way, the finish is custom. I did that. The way you get this finish, it helps if you can do, you know, a lot of hot, sweaty gigs. But but I left it in the trunk of my car for about 4 or 5 years, probably, winter and summer, 24 hours a day, and then this is how you get this look.
Built like a tank.
Yeah.
There you go. There's a perfect example of what
And it
Leo
got
Fender was
stolen.
trying to do.
It got stolen from me. I used to have stickers on here that said Tommy, you know, and it got stolen and they ripped them off, but I got it back. The guy from
cool.
Ted Richardson from Zaff's called me up and said, "Yo, we got your guitar."
So one thing I love about that guitar that's so cool is it's so versatile. But you mentioned Danny Gatton, who I got to see too, and it blew my mind. Can you show us what that guitar can do? Show us a little.
Okay. That's just the amp. This is a really good amp, by the way. But
That amp was worked on by George Fullerton. Yeah.
so, and I have an echo on it. That's the only thing I have on it is echo, and I can take that off. That's super loud, right? Is that too loud?
What did Tim say earlier? Guitars are meant to be loud.
Well, it doesn't need to be, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway. So. Hey, one more thing. You notice my knobs are different. My knobs are not right. This is usually, I took this whole thing out, turned it around, put the volume knob here. Usually it's
there. Yeah.
Usually it's volume, tone, and this thing is over here. I turn the whole thing upside down and because I like the volume right there. I never seen anyone else do that. I never seen it. Have you?
Nope.
I don't know why. It makes total sense. I never saw anyone do it.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah. Woo! So,
Yes.
Tommy, can you show off some of the tones that this thing can do? Because you got with the combination of switches and things.
Yeah, there's one jazz guy who plays a telly named Ed Bickert, and he's really great. A Canadian guy. He played with Paul Desmond. And he made some of his own records, but also played on some Paul Desmond records. Paul Desmond's the guy who used to play with what's his name, Dave Brubeck.
Yeah, Dave Brubeck. Yeah.
And but Ed Bickert, it's the real deal.
Yeah. Okay.
And he all on a telly. But I like I said, I'm a jazz fan. So like another thing I learned about tellies recently is I saw a guy from Nashville, a Nashville cat.
Yeah.
He said everybody turns the tone down. In Nashville, everybody turns the tone down a little bit to like 8.
Yeah.
That's what he said everybody does, and I totally get that. But hold on a second. Let me get a fat pick. That's a skinny pick. I use 2 picks. I use skinny ones and fat ones.
And talk about why you do that. What's the difference?
Hear the difference?
Yep. The thicker the pick, the more tone you can get out of the guitar.
And the less attack.
And the less,
This is a skinny pick. This is a fat pick. Maybe you can't tell the difference. It feels better too.
Yeah.
But it does sound a little bit different. I actually use a big fat one too.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's like
So that's like kind of a warmer telly sound. that's kind of
It's a weird ending.
So that's kind of like a warmer,
Yeah.
kind of a jazz.
And you know what? I could have turned the tone down. I should have turned the tone down a bit.
But you can hear why it's a tough guitar for jazz because it still has a little bit too much bite in it for
Yeah,
what
it does always have like a bite, and
Yeah.
that's what's cool about
That's
it.
what's great about it. That's what's awesome.
Like when you it can take a lot of, and you know what? I never really knew how to define it, but when you play a telly through like distortion,
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Now, there you go. You're getting very close to the Jimmy Page tone.
yeah, like this is my favorite song growing up.
Trying to grow.
When the sun gone down on sleepy little town, down around San Antonio, and the folks are riding for another day, down around their home. Got the child to grow, child to grow. Well, you talk about trying to grow.
You know what's so cool? What you just demonstrated? Right.
I had the tone down in the beginning. That's why it sounded kind of screwy.
No, it sounded great. But one of the things that's amazing about that guitar is while it has that bite, it also has a nice sustain. I mean, when I think of players like Jeff Beck or like when he solos, the amount of sustain he's able to pull out of that. And what you just showed, like, yeah. And yet it still has that sort of quick attack, which is just an amazing thing about that guitar. You know, like how Keith Richards will use it for a rhythm thing, particularly after the 70s, you know, and into the expensive winos. That it's such a versatile guitar. Can you demonstrate some other tones? That
It always sounds tough.
Yeah.
Like it always like
Well,
the
like
difference-
Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah, like the difference between a Strat and a Telly. Like a Strat is elegant, and a Strat
Yeah.
is versatile, and a Strat can be a Strat's cool. Jimmy Vaughan played a
Yeah.
Strat. Stevie Ray Vaughan, Jimi Hendrix. I mean, a Strat rocks.
Yeah.
But a Telly's just rougher and tougher. You know what I mean? It's just more kind of bare bones. I think it has. I guess it has a little more mid range. A Telly, right? Am I right? I think it does. Left my home in Norfolk, Virginia, California on my mind. Straddled down a Greyhound rolling down a Raleigh on across Carolina. Bypass Charlotte with bypass Rockville, we never want a minute late. 90 miles out of Atlanta by sundown, rolling across the Georgia state. Somebody help me get out of Louisiana, help me get to Houston town. Some folks who care a little about me and they won't let the poor boy down. Left my home in Norfolk, Virginia, California on my mind. Started that Greyhound rolling out of Raleigh on across Carolina. That's what I call grubby rock and roll.
Yeah.
Johnny Allen has a great version of it. Johnny Allen.
So you showed us some country, some jazz. Can you what about a more bluesy tone, sort of like or Albert Collins or one of those guys
we gotta play some Albert
yeah,
Collins.
yeah.
Keep your hands out my pocket, baby. Ain't a goddamn thing that never belong to you. Keep your hands out my pocket, baby. Ain't nothing that never belong to you. The way I've been treating me, baby, ain't a goddamn thing to do.
So you've demonstrated the kind of bluesy sound we can get, even a jazzy tone. One of the things that surprised me through looking at all the different people that play it, and it always has surprised me, is that it's also the choice of funk players. It's like such a, I mean, you think about Prince playing guitar, and he actually chose a Tele, and it's just, you go like, how does the guitar that is at home in country music, rock and roll, and is at home in funk? But can you demonstrate just a little, a little funky thing?
I don't really, I don't have a good like funk thing to play. You know what I mean? I know my place.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I didn't mean to put you on the spot
cool.
like that.
That's cool.
But hey, we are demonstrating that, like we want to point out just how versatile guitar it is, and how much. There you go. and just the sounds that it just naturally makes. And what is truly amazing is how it is also the signature sound of so many bands that are so different. I mean, it's the signature sound of Bruce Springsteen and the Clash, but it's also the signature sound of the Stones, particularly after the 70s. It's the Yardbirds, and as you were saying the other day, which still blows my mind, it's sold more Les Pauls because it is the solo sound on Stairway to Heaven.
It actually is the well, pretty much the entire Led Zeppelin 1 album
Yeah.
was recorded on a Telecaster. And Jimmy Page did use, in the studio, not on stage, but in the studio, he used a Fender Telecaster on the solo of Stairway to Heaven. And there's an old saying that says, nothing ever sold more Gibson Les Pauls than Page's Telly. And it's true, because everybody thinks that is a Gibson Les Paul on that solo. Yeah. And everybody wanted to sound just like that, but they were running out and buying Gibson Les Pauls to sound just like Jimmy Page on Stairway to Heaven,
and it didn't work.
In fact, it was a Telly.
Another thing is, like, sometimes when I'm playing with my band, I don't want to, like, drag out an acoustic guitar and, like, change and things. So I just, like, try to make this sound like one. You know what I mean? And Chrissy Hine used a Telly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And she was cool. She was badass.
Oh, yeah. And, the only band I've seen 4 nights in a row. I love the Pretenders.
This isn't the best amp for a clean sound, you know what I mean? But still. It's a nice strummy, jangly rhythm guitar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's at home. Yeah, Pretenders.
I guess we needed Jamie's Princeton for that one.
Clash, Bruce Springsteen, and yet, like, again, it's also the tone of all the country players. Vince Gill.
Yes.
It's
Buck Owens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't do that yet.
Okay.
Oh, he's going to do some country western. Here we go.
Pete Anderson showed me this.
Wow. Very cool.
Mike LeCompte showed me this.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty cool.
That's pretty cool. It is truly a versatile working man's guitar. The Fender Telecaster.
And I think it's safe to say that the Fender Telecaster is probably the single most influential electric solid body that was ever designed or built. Talk about getting it right the first time. I mean, he really did. You know, because it was the first commercially available solid body guitar. You could go to the store, you could buy it, and it's. I mean, they're still building essentially the same guitar today, all these years later. One of the interesting things is how the Telecaster got its name. Don Randall originally called the first one the Esquire because he felt it made it sound regal and important, and then they came out with a 2-pickup version. And I won't get into the wiring details because the wiring was really funky on the early Tellys. So they changed the name to the Broadcaster to differentiate because the Broadcaster had 2 pickups, and there was a very small run of 2-pickup Esquires, but Don Randall felt they needed a different name, so he called it the Broadcaster. And then Gretsch had a drum set called the Broadcaster with a K in the caster. And Gretsch, as soon as they released the Fender Broadcaster, it started selling. I think it sold like 87 units in the first month or something, which I guess for a brand new thing on the market before there was advertising being flung in your face every 2 seconds, selling that much was pretty quick. And Gretsch was like, well, no. We have a product called the Broadcaster. So rather than, doing a whole lawsuit thing and whatnot, Don Randall was like, okay, that's fine. We'll call it something else. So they dropped the name of Broadcaster, and then Leo Fender, remember the pencil guy? He was like, well, wait, we've got like hundreds of, or whatever, however many of these headstock decals that say Broadcaster on them. We can't just throw these water slide decals away. So he ordered all of his employees, when they were putting the logo on the headstock, to pick up a pair of scissors and cut the Broadcaster off and just put Fender on the headstock. And those were called the no-casters. And that obviously didn't sit real well with the marketing guy. So he called all the employees and his business associates, and it was like, had a little contest to come up with a name. And he didn't like anything anybody came up with, so he said, let's call it the Telecaster. And because television was, in the early 1950s, was a big thing. And in fact, that little Champion amp that I held up earlier, if you looked at it, the front of it, the cutout, looked like an old television screen. So it was called the TV front. The TV was like the really big thing back then. So that's why it got its name, called the Telecaster. So it went from the Broadcaster to the No-Caster to the Telecaster. And there you go. Was that quick enough?
That was awesome.
Leo was not a person that, apparently, according to George Fullerton, he was not a guy that would say, give you a pat on the back and say, attaboy, as far as like the people who worked for him and stuff like that. He was a very difficult guy to work for. He didn't want to, apparently he didn't like to give credit where credit was due. And he really didn't like that Merrill Travis thing, So in order to take some wind out of the sails of Merrill's story, he and George backdated the actual timing of when they built their prototype. And that's how the myth of the 48 Broadcaster got started. And it was actually, even in 1970s Fender sales literature, they mentioned the 48 Broadcaster.
Let's open it up to some questions, see if there's any questions out there from the audience.
How do you feel about the history of Bob Dylan going from acoustic to electric?
Well, it was a big deal at the time, and I could see why people were upset, but turned out pretty good. He doesn't give a shit. He's going to do his thing, and he's still that way, and he's fantastic. He does not seem to care one bit what anybody thinks, and it's fantastic. It's great.
It's an interesting question, too, because when you think about when you try and put music or anything into a box, you kind of kill it. And all these rules that say, we're going to define the genre by these things. Once you do that, it sort of starts to not have the same kind of innovation that it would if people are just,
all the songs since he went electric wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or probably most of them.
And they're still folk songs in some way. I mean, they're still songs of the folk, and they're still about something that's important or matters. So it's
was
still
a pivotal moment in 20th century music, though.
Yes, it was.
And I believe that we can Google this, but that guitar was recently sold at Christie's auction. That very guitar, I think it went for around $2.5 million.
And wasn't it a Telecaster that?
It was a Strat.
It was a Tele.
That was a Tele.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At that show when he went electric, he was playing a Tele.
No. Who was it? It was who was the guitarist who was playing with him? It was
Mike Bloomfield.
Mike Bloomfield. Yeah.
He played a Tele.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Always.
Yeah,
it was a Tele.
So but Dylan going electric was a Telecaster because Mike
was there.
Yes, he was. Yeah, yeah.
So if somebody is thinking about getting into the Telecaster family, there are a lot of different iterations, knockoffs. What do you guys think is a good place for somebody to start that doesn't want to take out a third mortgage?
You can get a really good maxi telly.
Mm-hmm.
They're not bad. The necks and the body seem to be pretty solid. The differences are in the hardware and the pickups, but fortunately they're very modular guitars. So it's really easy to upgrade those things, and then all of a sudden it sounds like a really high dollar guitar when you put the right upgrades in it, and they respond very well to upgrades. I mean, you can get Fender makes so many models. They make plenty of budget models, the Squires and things like that are
People like Squires.
they do.
Yeah.
They seem to like them. I never
Pros like
got on with them
Squires.
myself, but
Yeah, I think for the pros, it's because they know how to pick a guitar and they know how to tell if it feels good to them. They can pick it out.
Right.
But I think for the beginner, we're actually going to put together a little video to talk about how to buy your first guitar.
yeah, I think so. That's the second time we've gotten that
Yeah.
question.
So yeah, we're going to do a little piece on how to pick your first guitar because it's so hard to know what you don't know. And when you pick up that guitar and you're trying to strum it, what are the things you're kind of looking for? But like Tim said, a lot of the mid-level tellies from Fender are pretty good.
Yeah.
And they feel pretty good. You get them set up, take them to a professional luthier, and you'll have a really nice guitar to play on.
So like the Who, Pete Townsend, is he using a Fender?
Not
Fun-
usually.
funny you say
What,
that.
what
he's-
smash is best?
Well, he actually early in the 1960s, he was very well known for playing Rickenbackers, and the whole smashing of the guitar thing got started when they were playing in a club that had a very low ceiling, and he swung the guitar up and the headstock hit the ceiling and broke, and he got kind of pissed off, and he figured he'd just roll with it, and he smashed the guitar. And then the next time they played the club, the people were lined up outside the block because they wanted to see this guy smash the guitar. So then he just kind of rolled with it, and he turned it into performance art because he's a pretty perceptive artist. But Rickenbackers were very delicate guitars, and they broke really easy.
Most of them were
and
hollow back then.
they were hollowish too. They had a bit of a resonance to them, but. He switched to the Fender Tele because it was easy to smash the Tele, and then you could put it back together. And it was much cheaper on the band budget by not having to buy a brand new expensive guitar after every show. So
This is one of the Who songs where Pete is playing a Telecaster. That happens sort of. Here it comes.
Really?
Yep.
Is it a Fender?
Yep.
I thought so.
it's actually a Schecter Tele.
This one's a Fender. I looked it up.
No, it's not. I worked on this guitar. I worked on this very guitar. It was on my bench.
The guitar that's on Eminence.
The guitar that is on Eminence Front was on my
I always thought it was a
bench.
Schecter too.
It's the
research lies.
Okay, well then, and
'Cause-
it's also the same guitar that he used on tour for their very first
I thought it
farewell
was a
tour
Schecter.
Okay.
with Kenny Jones.
You heard it right from the horse's mouth. It sounds like a Tele.
It is a Tele. It's just a Schecter. It's built by Schecter. It's definitely a Tele.
All right, so there you go. Pete Townsend using a Tele.
There's I sent you a clip last night in 1966 of
Yeah.
the Who playing My Generation. He's playing Tele.
Yep.
And how about that one where he's later in his life when he's playing that 52 Tele and he makes a big deal about it.
Yeah.
And he goes, it sounds like this, and he starts playing Magic Bus live on it, which was really cool.
Quick question is with Jeff Beck playing the Telecaster.
Yes.
What's his love of the sissy bar?
Well, it's really interesting because he doesn't always use the bar. And what blows me away about Jeff Beck is that he is able to get those bends that he does and some of those dives on his Tele without using the bar. I've seen him play a number of times where he's playing a telly, and it is the most interesting guitar. He also uses his fingers. He doesn't use a pick most of the time.
That's true.
And he just gets this this really unique, interesting tone. Is one of my favorite guitars and a very big influence on me and sort of how I play. So when you hear this right here, this is early Jeff. So we're pretty sure this would be. I think I looked this up.
Oh yeah,
and
this is a Telly. He used it. It was a 1954 Esquire that he used on this. Full of facts here.
And it's just an amazing guitar player and incredibly influential and really sensitive to tone. I mean, you hear the tone on that guitar, and then I'm not sure. It said in the research that I did that "Cause We Ended as Lovers" was also a Telly.
Mm-hmm.
And
According to him, it was.
yeah.
So I mean, he should know. I don't know how he did that.
And he's not using a bar,
freak.
which is the interesting thing. I know that he does a lot of bending of the neck. He will take the telly and do this thing with it. So, but he also uses his ring. Like sometimes he uses the edge of his ring as a slide up high.
That sounds like a telly. Kind of makes you want to quit.
One thing I did want to say earlier when Tom was playing, you might have seen me lean over and speak to Rod like off to the side, and basically what I was saying was, you know, it's really a certain and a special kind of musician that can go up in front of an audience with just themselves and a guitar and pull it off with no band, no bass, no drums, nothing. And Tom's got that, and
Yeah.
that
So
really,
let's give it- yeah.
that really is
Awesome.
the mark of a true professional.
Thank you, Tom.
I just wanted to say this has been amazing. Thank you so much for doing this. I've learned an awful lot. Just wish you major continued success with this. This is a brilliant way to do things, like sort of interviewing a guitar. And it's just great. And have Tommy up there playing.
Well, as I would like to say thank you to all of you for coming out. This is so awesome for us because, again, Just Guitars is an idea that I've been wanting to do for a very long time. And Tim and I literally have been trying to do this for about, maybe 15 or 20 years.
Long time. We've been talking about doing this for a long time.
Long
It just
time.
never happened, and then one day.
And so I want a big thank you to Jamie for
Jamie,
giving
for
us the
making this
space to do
possible.
this
Yeah.
in. It's just a joy. One of the things that a friend of mine told me a long time ago is make the things that you want to see. And this is one of the things that I am very, very passionate about, as I'm sure everyone up here on this stage is the guitar, and just having a place where we can just geek out together with a bunch of people who are equally as fanatical about music and guitars is just awesome. I would a big thank you, Tommy, for coming out. Thank you for playing. It's just been awesome. You rock, and it's such a joy to watch you play. We have a YouTube page called Just Guitars Podcast Live. Our Facebook page is Just Guitars Podcast. So if you like this, tell people about it. Share,
subscribe, all that good stuff.
Subscribe. It's the only way we're going to keep going. We need to, make sure that there's people here. It's the third Thursday of every month that we are here, and we're going to be doing a whole bunch of these. We got a whole bunch of ideas for guests and different. There are so many guitars to talk about, and as you can see, Tim knows a lot. Thank you all for being here. Again, my name is Rodney Wittenberg.
My name is Tim Henke.
And this is Just Guitars
Live. All right. Cool.
And this was the show called Just Guitars. That's what it's called, Just Guitars. It ain't about the tuba or sitar. That's why it's called Just Guitars.